exactly how to set it up. So we have to get more information. Seven. Does C contain any blank? Yes. All right, here's something that I put in C besides water. It's the substance that the ancient camel caravans traveled hundreds of miles to obtain in the Middle East because they didn't have it in their country and they wanted it. What did the ancient camel caravans travel hundreds of miles to get that they didn't have and they wanted so badly? Anybody know? Jackie?
Gold?
No. Gold. Okay, here's another clue. Its chemical name is sodium chloride. Any of you know that? Wyatt?
Salt.
Salt.
Oh, yes.
Does C contain any salt?
Oh my gosh. Oh,
Yes.
I don't know.
Does anybody know why the ancient camel caravans traveled so far?
Salt.
Because, why?
Because they wanted their food to taste better.
Oh, very good, Wyatt. I've never had a fifth grader say that before. Travelers to their country told them that it made food taste better and they wanted to, so they wanted it. Now, if you don't believe that salt makes food taste better, two of you take a friend to McDonald's and one order French fries with salt and order one French fries without salt.
I know.
And you'll quickly find out that salt makes things taste better. Okay, who's somebody that hasn't participated that can tell me the control question for 7? I'm gonna, okay, you haven't participated yet, Sheila.
D has.
Does D
Does D have any salt?
Yes. Well, that's a similarity. You don't put similarities in a conclusion. You only put differences. So we have to ask this. Now, don't anybody say this. I want to call on somebody. Does C contain blank, 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 salt and water? Who knows what word goes in there? Is there anybody that I haven't called on? Jeremy? Only salt. We have to find that out. Yes. All right, 10. Control question. Brandon?
Does D contain only salt and water?
Yes.
They're different.
All right. Right. Wyatt just pointed out the obvious. They both contain only salt and water, but we know they're different because both eggs sink here and both eggs float. If they both contain only salt and water, how could they be different, Janelle? How could they be different, Darby?
Because one of the liquid levels is higher than the other.
Not much. It's almost the same. It's not significant. What could be different, Megan?
There's more salt in the other one.
11. Which one do you think contains more salt, Megan? Does D contain more salt? Yes. All right, now who knows why the eggs float in D? Why do the eggs float in D? Where's your name tag? Oh, Jonathan.
Because the salt makes it less dense.
Who can explain it slightly differently from that? Emily B.
Because there's more salt in D, so it makes it denser.
Make it more dense. More salt makes water more dense. Okay, now, if you go over here to Clear Lake and wade out over your head, you'll sink if you don't swim. Why? Why will you sink if you don't swim? Who can explain it in terms of density? Shayla?
Because when you're not swimming, your hands in the water.
Who can explain it different from Shayla? What, Tia?
Because the water is fresh.
And what's the significance of that, Janelle?
So because since it doesn't have salt, then it's less dense.
I'm gonna have you vote. How many of you say you are more dense than Clear Lake? How many say you're less dense than Clear Lake? Well, you're more dense than Clear Lake. How do you know? Because if you don't swim, you'll sink. All right, now who can name a lake where you aren't more dense than the lake? Name one lake where you aren't more dense, Nathan.
Salt Lake City.
Great Salt Lake in Utah. Why are you less dense than the water in Great Salt Lake? Anybody know that? Emily?
Because it has salt.
Not only salt, but it has a lot of salt.
Yeah.
It has so much salt that your body is less dense than that. Okay, so because liquid C and D are different, now we have enough to add to the conclusion. Although both contain only water and salt, D contains more salt. That makes D more blank, 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 blank. Raise your hand if you haven't participated today and you know what word goes in the blank. Jacob, do you know what word goes in the blank? That makes D more. The more salt makes D more what?
Dense.
Dense, right. Good. That makes D more dense. Okay, and where do things float better? In liquids that are
In liquids that have salt.
dense. Okay, good. Well, that went a little faster and smoother because you had already learned some of the rules. Now, you demonstrated, some of you demonstrated that you know how to ask a control question and an experimentation question. You now know what a focus is, or how a focus is worded, how a problem is worded. You also know when to tell whether a conclusion is reliable or valid or not, and whether it's refuted. So you made a lot of progress. Okay, that's the end of this focus. The name of this focus is egg D and F. And the problem is, why does egg E sink in liquid E, but egg F float in liquid F? Okay, I'm going to put egg E, liquid E, and you can see that it sinks. And egg F in liquid F, and you can see that it floats. We have to gather data to support a conclusion that answers that question. And who remembers what the Latin word data means? What does it mean? Information. You don't write the data, I do. Okay. Who can tell me an experiment we can do to find out whether it's because of the eggs or the liquids? Tell me an experiment. Mason?
You can put egg F and the water E, the liquid E, and egg E in liquid F.
All right. That calls for two experiments. Raise your hand if you remember what two-letter word an experimentation question always begins with. Big J.
If.
If you put egg E into liquid F, will it float? Okay, and then the opposing experiment just changes the letters around. If you put egg F into liquid E, will it sink? And because I can do those experiments quite easily, I'll do them. Okay, now watch what happens. I'll take F out of here, and I'll put E over here. Does it float?
Yes.
I'm gonna put F over here. Raise your hand if you think it's gonna float. I can tell you were thinking. The answer to both questions is yes. Now I'm gonna ask some of you to do a little bit more thinking. Raise your hand if you can tell me what those two experiments just proved. What did they prove, Jonathan?
That it's not the egg that's making it float.
It's the liquids, the difference in the liquids. So we already have enough data to write a tentative conclusion. Now tentative means temporary, and you don't write it until I tell you it's final. Okay, we'd say because liquids E and F are different. Okay, we know that much just because of experiments 1 and 2. And so, what's one word we can describe? Anybody remember the 2 words used to describe an experiment that's supported by the data? What's one of them? Anybody know one of the words? What?
Oh,
No. Valid and reliable.
oh yeah.
And it's not refuted by the data either. Who remembers what refuted means? Emily?
Proved false.
Right, it's not proof false. Okay? They both look like water. So a good way to start out is to find out if there's any water in it. Does E contain any water?
Oh.
Yes. Raise your hand if you know the control question for number 3. Control, Jackie.
Does F contain any water?
Yes. All right. I can't change the conclusion on the basis of those data. Why? Why can't I? Why, Emily?
Because all of them are yeses.
Well, you're on the right track, Jake.
Because you only put differences.
Right, that's a similarity. You only put differences in the conclusion. Okay. 5. Does E contain blank, 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 blank water? Now, don't say it. I want to call on somebody. Justin, you haven't participated. Do you know what word goes in there?
Salt.
No, not salt. Salt's a 4-letter word, but it's not that word. Tanner?
Only.
Only. Does E contain only water? No. All right. Justin, do you know the control question for that?
Does F contain only water?
Right, does F contain only water? No. Well, I can't change the conclusion because it's a similarity. All right. 7. Does E contain any blank? Yes. Here are some clues about something I put in E. It's a solid, it's granular, it's found in the kitchen, it's white, and it's not sweet. What does it have to be? What does it have to be, Stevie?
Salt.
Does it contain any salt? Yeah. All right. 8. Control question. I'm looking for somebody. Chase. Control question.
Does F contain any salt?
Does F contain any salt? Yes. Well, it's a similarity. I can't change the conclusion. 9. Does E contain blank, 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 salt and water? Justin, I'm going to see if you know the word this time. 4-letter word. Only salt and water. No. Well, obviously this is more complicated than the first 2. Well, I told you they'd get more complicated. Kendall, what do you want to do? You want to ask the control question? What is it?
Does F contain
Does F contain only salt and water? No. Okay, so and does E contain any blank? Yes. Okay, here's some clues about something else that's in E. Megan, you don't have any clues yet. How could you
I
possibly
think I
know?
know what sugar.
All you know is it's some substance, and there are at least a million substances in the world. Oh, we've narrowed it down to a million. Okay, we need to narrow it down to one. All right. Does E contain any? It's a solid. It's granular. It's found in the kitchen. It's white. What does it have to be and why? Well, first you can tell me what it has to be. Wyatt.
Salt.
Why isn't it? Who can tell me why it isn't salt? Allie?
Because
We already have salt. So Wyatt, what does it have to be?
I'm not very
Jackie, what's
sugar.
Sugar. Sugar. Okay. 11. Control question. Jacob, yeah.
Does F contain only sugar?
Any sugar.
Any sugar.
Yes. All right. 12. Does E contain blank, 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 salt, sugar, and water? Who knows what word goes in the four blanks? Justin? Hey, Justin's really honed in on that. Okay. Yes, it only contains salt, sugar, and water. 13. Control question, somebody. Emily, B.
Does F contain only salt, sugar, and water?
Yes. Well, now it's getting to be a real puzzle because this one contains only salt, sugar, and water, and the eggs sink. This one contains only salt, sugar, and water, and the eggs float. But we know they're different. How could they be different, Brandon?
One has more sugar or salt or water. One has more sugar.
Well, boy, you just named a bunch of things. Okay. We usually try to zero in on one thing at a time, so here's what we'll do. Does F contain more salt? No. F doesn't contain more salt. So what's the next thing we should ask about? What's the next question we should ask, Nathan?
Does E contain more salt?
Does E contain more salt? Yes. So that conflicts with what we found in the first two focuses. How does this conflict with what we found? What happened in the first two focuses that's not happening this time? Emily B.
The one with more salt sinks.
In the first two focuses, they floated into the one with the more salt. Now they're sinking in the one with the more salt.